An Easter poem. Betrayed in the middle of the night by a friend, by a kiss on the cheek. The death of a friend for nothing more than 30 pieces of silver. I watch in shock and awe and horror. But would I not have done the same for less? If not him, then me. To Caiaphas, seeking for lies where there is only truth. When the truth was spoken, blindfolded, struck, slapped, and spit on by one legion of men against one single man. Taunting, mocking, beating, the first of many blows. The pain, the shame. I watch in shock and awe and horror. But if not them, then me throwing that first punch. To Pilate. The truth unspoken, for the truth speaks for itself. Whom do you want me to release for you? Barabbas, the murderer, or Jesus, who is called Christ? The perfect lamb crucified to set a sinner free? Why? What has he done? Let him be crucified. Pilate does as I have always done, washes his hands. Innocent of this man's blood. I watch in shock and awe and horror. But if not them, then me, yelling crucify from the sea of voices. Stripped of all clothing, naked before an angry mob, scourged. Tied with arms back, shoulders stretched to their limits, and then whipped with a flagrum. A whipped with leather ropes whose ends are tied with metal, glass, and bones. Scourging would quickly remove skin. Whipping again and again and again and again. Bleeding first from capillaries and skin, and then arteries and underlying muscle. Torn flesh, exposed muscle, whipped until unrecognizable. The beating only stops when Christ, the innocent, perfect Lamb of God, is determined half dead. You wouldn't want him all the way dead. He still has to die on the cross. Jesus, the innocent Lamb of God, delivered to be crucified. I watch in shock and awe and horror. But if not them, then me, holding that whip. To the people, stripped and scourged. The ties cut, his body slumps. Blood-soaked, tired, dehydrated. Now clothed in a robe fit for a king, draped across his blood-soaked back, a scepter in hand, the King of all kings, given a crown by his people, the King of the Jews, a crown of thorns. Not thorns like the one from your grandma's roses, but real, proper thorns. I want you to understand the severity of these thorns because of what comes next. Pressed deeply into his bruised and beaten head, he put on a crown of thorns that I could wear a crown of gold. The perfect, sinless, blameless lamb, beaten and bruised for me, the one who sent him to his death so that I could live. I watch in shock and awe and horror. But if not them, then me, holding that crown of thorns. Blood finally clotting under that kingly robe, now ripped with less than surgical precision, off which you could only call ribbons of skin. More flesh torn from his back as the blood once again begins to flow. The open wound is once again exposed. Beaten beyond recognition, inhuman. Christ takes up the cross, my cross, exposed flesh against that splintered cross, falling, stumbling, the pain of the cross, the shock of blood loss. A human body pushed beyond the breaking point can go no further. A man pulled from the crowd, Simon of Cyrene. The 650-yard journey to Golgotha complete. I watch in shock and awe and horror. But if not them, than me jeering from the crowded streets. The crucifixion begins. The cross, a T shape that brings hope, peace, and forgiveness. It may even spark joy. A T shape that sole purpose is to prolong the life of the criminal, the life of our King, Jesus of Nazareth, King of the Jews, the innocent, perfect Lamb. Arms stretched wide to heaven as they pounded nails into his wrist and feet. The nerves hit, causing more excruciating pain and paralysis of the hands. I watch in shock and awe and horror. But if not them, then me holding that hammer. The cross lifted and fatigue sets in. Arms, wrists, and shoulders now dislocated due to bearing his own weight. Breathing becomes more difficult as the weight of his body is now in his chest. Lungs fill with fluid, heart rate elevated, body fatigued. He thirsts. Mouth filled with a bitter taste that only reflects the bitterness in my heart. Mocked, bruised, beaten beyond recognition, blood loss, fatigue. Bearing the weight of his own body and my sin. Death by suffocation. In his last breath, in his dying breath. Forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do. Testelestai, it is finished. Darkness at 3 p.m, the light of the world no longer shining. I watch in shock and awe and horror. But if not them, then me. Body hanging, blood and water spilled out from me, brought to the tomb. Do you think this is where the devil thought that he had won? For 3 days, do you think he celebrated his victory over God and Christ in that tomb? For 3 days, he had won. The serpent had bruised the heel of God. But then the ground began to shake and the stone rolled away. The light of the world once again began to shine through the darkness. Do you think that Christ crushed the head of the serpent on his way out of the tomb? Or do you think it was more a metaphorical crushing of pride? The perfect Son of God, once dead, now alive. The power of death, sin, and Satan overcome by the love, life, and grace of our perfect Lamb. I watch in shock and awe and wonder as our once dead King conquers the grave.